Good morning, sir. Great to have you on.
Good morning. Thanks for having me again.
Although I must say that the topic is rather difficult and quite complex, right? So let's go back to 2018, to what has happened in Austria. Apparently, the Russians managed to get into the country's secret service.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this was indeed something quite extraordinary, and it was a deep infiltration, which then led to a political scandal in Austria. And I think this is just a symptom of a larger penetration, unfortunately, of Austria by Russian structures that not only concerns, maybe not so much concerns governmental structures, but rather economic structures that are deeply infiltrated by Russia. Vienna is known to be a sort of hotspot for Russian oligarchs and agents and actors, other actors, formal and informal actors. And Austria is, in a way, I would say, even a security danger for the Western alliance. Austria is not a NATO member, but an EU member, and a problem, I would say. Not as much as perhaps in the past. There's now some positive change, but still Austria is problematic.
Right, but all of these things are sort of coming to light right now. Also in Poland, we recently, several people were identified as possible Russian agents, of course, conducting some form of sabotage. So I wonder why now? I mean, possibly because of the European parliamentary elections that are coming right up, but I'm not sure.
Partly, I think these are simply older already infiltrations that are now being disclosed because also the Western and in general EU, NATO security agencies have become more alert and more serious about this. At least for Germany, I can say so that my suspicion is that the recent disclosures that we've seen in Germany, which I know better than Poland, are perhaps just connections that have been there already for a long time, and that are now being taken more seriously and more intensely investigated. But as you rightly indicate, this is perhaps also an expression of Russia's heightened aggressiveness and intention to undermine both the European Union and the United States, the political processes there, to sow discord, to strengthen marginal radical parties on the far right and far left, and thereby to also undermine the support for Ukraine and also for countries like Moldova and Georgia's European aspirations. So I think that's both a sign of new Russian aggressiveness, but also just a disclosure of older Russian infiltration that had not been taken as seriously.
Right, so this sort of renewed scrutiny, I guess, could be quite helpful. But explain to me, please, what is the scale of this phenomenon in Europe in general? I mean, you've mentioned that it is quite pronounced in Austria, but what about other countries?
Unfortunately, I also don't have any additional information than from what we can learn from the media and from investigative agencies like Bellingcat that go deeper into these connections. So it's actually difficult to say how far there is still under the surface, and maybe there is much more. Maybe much of it has been now already disclosed. It's also difficult for me to say, but whenever there is such a disclosure, it's actually quite shocking how multifarious and how deep partly these connections are. There's now in Germany a whole series of such disclosures of connections between the far-right, right-wing populist party Alternative for Germany, AfD, and Russia, and also partly China. And that is now also leading to problems for this party, because there are basically every other month there are new disclosures of payments or connections between this party and authoritarian actors from abroad.
Sir, so I mean, I guess you know Germany best. So let me ask you, I mean, up until recently, German-Russian relations were not that bad, right? I mean, there was cooperation in various fields, of course, in terms of economy and so on. And there's some characters on the German political scene. I mean, of course, Gerhard Schröder comes to mind, but perhaps also others. Will there be some increased, you know, interest in these people and sort of trying to check what their connections to Russia are? What is the sort of, you know, the climate in Germany pertaining to this at the moment?
I think it has changed and it is further changing. It is a topic of almost daily debate, and it's also sort of brought up again by new disclosures, by new investigations. I mean, we have gone far away. I'm German myself from before 2022 until today, but there's still, I think, a lack of seriousness, a certain lack of seriousness in this, expressing itself, for instance, to the cavalier attitude towards Gerhard Schröder. He is still regarded a part of the German political elite. He gets when he celebrates certain like his birthday, politicians from various parties come to congratulate him. He's still a member of the Social Democratic Party of Russia, although arguably he's a traitor. He has betrayed his home country, his nation, but he is still included in the political elite. So I think there's still a way to go, and we don't yet have an official investigation of the reasons why for 30 years, basically, German policy towards Russia and Eastern Europe in general has gone wrong.
All right, and let me also ask you about the media. There was this media outlet, Voice of Europe, right, which has turned out to be influenced by Russia, or sort of be a mouthpiece for the Russian regime in a sense, right? Of course, it was all done covertly. So I wonder, do we see, or you know, any new media outlets sort of being established, mushrooming, I guess, throughout Europe, and how do we sort of you know, notice which ones are you know, suspicious in a sense? Can we do that? I mean, are scholars working on it? What are some of the practices?
That's a good question, and there is now actually an attention both among academic scholars and non-academic investigators, like the already mentioned Bellingcat investigative agency, or Corrective is another one in Germany that is investigating these issues. We have to be careful. One should, on the other side, also not over-evaluate outlets like this Voice of Europe. I think the influence of these Russian outlets has gone down since 2022, because the gap between the sort of parallel world that these outlets are trying to create with their reporting and the real world is just too glaring, and the facts are just too eminent to simply neutralize them by propaganda. But there are other forms of Russian influence now. It's actually, I think, mainly through just official Russian announcement, like these nuclear threats, where Russia does not need any special outlets to spread them, and that are in many continental West European countries rather effective in hindering these countries' more resolute help for Ukraine.
So, and just one last quick question regarding the media, because we've been sort of concentrating on how Russia is using media abroad, right, to influence foreign audiences. But what about using, you know, people from abroad to influence people within Russia? And I mean, for instance, Tucker Carlson, right, whose show was picked up by Russian TV. So, do you think that there will be other journalists like this, or sort of other practices like this, to influence domestic audiences within Russia?
Yes, that is often a somewhat forgotten aspect of this whole campaigning. And maybe I should add to what I said before that unlike this sort of official media, traditional media, Russia is very active in social media. So I think I think is the main threat right now. With these Western figures that then are sort of brought to Russia and are presented as supporting Putin, that has been a very effective strategy until 2022. And many journalists and politicians and even actors, they have then sort of lent Russia their reputation to support Putin. Since 2022, that has become more problematic because the policies of Russia have become so much more aggressive, genocidal, one could argue, policies. And so there are still people who do this for Russia, but far fewer than we used to have until 2022.
Andreas Umland, thank you, sir, for being with us this morning.